In 1977, NASA launched one of the most ambitious space missions in history, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Two spacecraft sent to explore the outer planets of our solar system. Thousands of engineers worked on the mission. Some of the smartest scientists on Earth checked every calculation, every trajectory, every detail. But then something unbelievable happened. A 16-year-old boy sat down at his desk, looked at NASA's numbers, and found a mistake. Not a typo, not a tiny rounding error, a real mistake. And somehow, the teenager was right. NASA was wrong. What happened next is one of the most incredible stories you've probably never heard. Before we get to the mistake, you need to meet the boy who found it. His name was Robert Stale. He lived in Connecticut and by all appearances was a normal teenager. But there was one thing that made him different. He was obsessed with space, while other teenagers were watching television. Robert spent his evenings studying NASA mission reports, reading scientific papers, checking calculations, learning everything he could about spacecraft and astronomy. Most people admired NASA from a distance. Robert did something very different. He checked their math, and one day, something didn't seem right. The discovery. To understand what Robert found, you need to understand one simple idea. Gravity can act like a slingshot. When a spacecraft flies close to a giant planet like Jupiter, the planet's gravity can pull it in and then fling it back out at a higher speed. This technique allows spacecraft to travel farther without carrying enormous amounts of fuel. NASA planned to use Jupiter's gravity to help Voyager continue its journey through the solar system. Everything depended on calculating that maneuver correctly. So Robert started reviewing some of the publicly available Voyager data. At first, he assumed everything would match. After all, this was NASA. But the numbers didn't line up. He checked again. Same result. He tried a different method. Same result. For 3 straight days. He worked through the calculations. And the more he checked, the more convinced he became that something was wrong. Now imagine being 16 years old and believing you found a mistake in a NASA mission. Most people would assume they made an error. Robert did something much harder. He decided to ask. The letter. He wrote NASA a letter. A handwritten letter. Polite, respectful, carefully organized. He explained his calculations step by step. And then he asked a simple question. Can you help me understand where my reasoning is wrong? Then he mailed it and waited. Weeks later, a response arrived. Not from a secretary, not from a public relations office, but from an actual engineer working on the Voyager mission. The engineer explained why Robert's calculations appeared different. According to NASA, they had included an advanced correction in their model, a correction Robert hadn't considered. Case closed, or so it seemed. The second discovery. Most people would have stopped there, right? But Robert didn't. He went to the library. He found a scientific paper NASA had referenced, and he studied it, page by page. And eventually, he discovered something remarkable. NASA's correction was real, but the formula they were using had limitations. It worked perfectly under certain conditions, and Jupiter happened to sit right at the edge of those conditions, which meant the formula introduced a small error, a very small error, but not zero. That detail changed everything. So Robert wrote a second letter, this time with citations, scientific references, mathematical evidence. He wasn't guessing anymore. He had proof. And then he waited again, for months. NASA's response. Finally, another letter arrived. This time, NASA acknowledged what Robert had found. The issue he identified was real. The limitation in the formula was real, and his observations would be considered in future trajectory refinements. Think about that for a moment. NASA, one of the most respected scientific organizations on Earth, had taken feedback from a 16-year-old seriously, not because of his age, not because of his credentials, but rather because the evidence was good, because the math was correct, because he had done the work. And to me, that's the most incredible part of this story. Not that he found a mistake, but how he found it. So what happened next? Years later, Robert Stahl joined NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the very organization he had written to as a teenager. He went on to work on spacecraft missions and advanced space exploration projects. The teenager who once questioned NASA became one of the people helping build its future. And that brings us to the real lesson. The lesson. This story isn't really about proving NASA wrong. It's about curiosity. It's about persistence. It's about having the courage to ask a question when something doesn't make sense. Robert didn't become remarkable because he knew all the answers. He became remarkable because he was willing to keep searching for them. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: good ideas don't care where they come from. Not from titles, not from degrees, not from age, only from evidence. A 16-year-old understood that, and NASA did too. So let me leave you with a question. What idea have you been keeping to yourself? Because you think nobody will take you seriously. Because somewhere out there may be a door waiting to open. Just like that letter opened one for Robert Stahl. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment and subscribe to Rivanz Media for more incredible true stories, mind-blowing facts, growth and entertaining content. And I'll see you in the next video.